welcome to Silicon Slopes Commons, State of Utah. I'm Elizabeth Converse, and we're here today with Senator Millner. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the district you represent.
So I'm Ann Millner, and I represent Senate District 18. And that includes parts of Weber County, Davis County, and Morgan County. So this is just a beautiful area of the state and lots of wonderful people here. And I am so honored to represent the constituents in my district.
That's wonderful. So we know that Utah has a part-time legislature. Do you have a job outside of your legislative service?
I do. I work at Weber State University. I teach. I actually teach in healthcare administration. I teach mostly in the graduate program, and I love the opportunity to interact with students. And the really good part about it is I'm serving in the legislature, and you kind of see things at this state policy level, but students keep you grounded in their everyday lives and what's going on. And with graduate students, most of them are working health professionals. And so I kind of think these are people with careers and families and trying to go to school. And so they really keep me grounded in the realities of the experience of all of our families in the state.
Yeah, Representative Jennifer Daly Provost is getting her PhD, I believe, from the U. And we were talking about how she's managing all of that as well, like the job, the service, and furthering her career through education. It's got to be interesting to have that many kind of students be able to interact with you on a day-to-day basis. Has their lives changed a little bit? Are any of them COVID frontline workers?
Their lives are impacted by COVID significantly, and in many ways, the same way as everybody else. I mean, some of them have some frontline responsibilities. A lot of them may have other kinds of roles, but they are going to school, but they're also working those jobs. And many of them, when schools were closed down, they are also playing the role of teacher at home and balancing kind of true career families trying to do their jobs from home. And then they're also their children and then do work in different kinds of ways and still make sure it works. And so, certainly last spring in particular, you could see the stress and strain in their lives. By fall, people were, I think, in better rhythms, and some things that were a little bit more normalized, and that helped a little bit. But there's still that stress and strain like on everybody's life today, and trying to balance all of that's just, lives are busy. They're probably stressful already, and then with COVID, it's just heightened that stress level.
Definitely. So why did you decide to run for election?
I have had the opportunity to serve in education in this community for a very long time. I had the opportunity to get involved with lots of different community-based organizations and have always been focused on trying to make a difference in education all the way from K-20 to 20. Thinking about how we do a better job of helping all of our children, students, and adults achieve their educational goals, if they have career goals, help them succeed in those careers. And then, I've also been actively involved in economic development. When I first came to this state in the mid 80s, so I've been here now for almost 40 years. In the mid 80s, we had this time when we were in a recession. There were no jobs in Utah, and our graduates at Weber State and all across the state were leaving the state to get jobs because there weren't jobs in the state. Now, I don't want us to ever return to that again. We've talked a lot in the last decade about being always in the top 5 states, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, but we're in top 5 economically, and we have good, strong jobs, and we've had low unemployment rates. And, even when you compare us to the rest of the nation right now, we still have low unemployment rates compared to everyone else. And I want us to continue to do that. I am passionate about that, and making sure we have good, strong, family-sustaining jobs, that people who want to stay in Utah, have their kids grow up in Utah, we have opportunities for them. And one of the ways we do that is to also have a great education system and lots of opportunities there. So I've been doing that at the university for a long time, and in our community. And when this opportunity came up to run, I thought I want the chance to make a difference at the state level and to continue to work on these things, but to have an impact statewide, and feel like I've had that opportunity and feel so blessed and honored to have had it.
What's been your favorite part of serving so far?
It's being able to identify a problem, identify something where we need to be better as a state, pull the stakeholders together, begin to see if we can't work together to craft a workable solution that will have a positive impact on the state of Utah. And then being able to work through the process with the legislature and with my colleagues, both in the House and the Senate, and be able to try to get that legislation passed and watch good things happen.
So we're all trapped in this pandemic together, unfortunately. What do you see the legislature being able to do, not only to stem the tide of the pandemic, but also to make sure that, like you said, economically, Utah is still a safe place to live and work going forward?
I think that's absolutely our work during this next year, is to continue to be able to help, particularly our small business people who are really struggling, be able to provide them some support and to get through this period of time. They've been part of the lifeblood of Utah. To be able to support our other industries and help them stay open, make sure they're able to continue to do the work they're doing and employ the people of the state. In order to do that, I think we have to ask everybody in our communities to take some personal responsibility, to be respectful of. One of the ways that we can do that is that we socially distance, that we wear masks when we're in settings with people outside our household, that we wash our hands until they're dry, which is what I feel like it's the case all the time. Wash my hands and then get some lotion on them. But, just continue. I mean, the people of this state are remarkable people, and they take care of each other. And I know everybody is really, really getting tired that this, continues on. But to just try to stay the course. We can see light at the end of the tunnel. The first vaccines have arrived in the state, and the first kind of healthcare workers are able to get those vaccines. And so if we can just stay the course here for a while, and make sure we can get those vaccines out in an appropriate way and facilitate that as quickly as we're able to get them. And then ask people just to stay the course with us for a while, so we can keep our schools open, we can keep our employers open, our businesses open. We can get through this together. And then I think the last piece is really understanding how do we help and support each other on a social and emotional level. I think probably as much as anything, people have really begun to understand how important those relationships in our lives are to all of us. Whether they're our business colleagues, whether they're our friends, or whether they're our family. Those relationships are important, and how do we reach out and support each other and provide supports for people who need that. So it's not just a physical thing, It's also a social and emotional, and let's make sure we can provide the support.
So if we weren't trapped in this pandemic altogether, where would your legislative focus be?
Well, I'm still trying to work on things that I think are important. So we all do kind of COVID work, but at the same time, we have to think about next year. We're hopeful that, by the end of next year, we've really been able to get past the extreme effects, anyway, of this. And so I've been focusing on thinking about public ed and public ed funding. We had actually an extraordinary day yesterday with executive appropriations. And that because we've been able to keep our economy strong even during this pandemic, and we had taken some significant cuts in all levels of government, but with the passing of Amendment G, we had a companion bill, House Bill 357, that said in the base budget, we would actually start to put in place this funding framework for education. And in the base budget, we would fund growth in public education. We would fund an inflation factor for public education. We would put money back into a public education stabilization fund that would allow us to continue to provide that support in good times and bad times, because we'd save for the bad times. We did all that yesterday, and executive appropriations made that recommendation for the base budget. And in addition to that, we had said when we had to cut part of the WPU last year, that we would restore that as quickly as we could. And we did that. So that was a significant recommendation to the legislature for a significant increase in funding to public education that I really believe will make a difference. And particularly now when our students and our teachers really need this. They really need the help and the support. So we're continuing to work on public ed funding, and now I'm working on how do we continue to refine how we fund public education. We've had the State Board of Education's done like a 2-year study with West Ed on Utah's funding formula, and we can see some ways that we can improve that. But again, we need to get all the stakeholders involved and begin to study the results of that, and then talk about how we make policy changes that would enable us to do that. In addition to that, I'm working on economic development, and I really would like to see us build a state strategy for economic development. It's not just a go-ed strategy, that's a state strategy that really thinks through all the players in economic development and how we coordinate and align our work across the state, all the way from thinking about it as part of the work of higher education, of workforce services, of our chamber organizations, of Silicon Slopes, of, World Trade Center. Everybody that's involved in this work, trying to align that under a state strategy so that we really can catalyze the work that we're doing and be future focused about economic development in the state of Utah.
There's several rural representing reps and senators that I've spoken to thus far that are really interested in making sure that the growth in our state is managed in a way that is sustainable, but also includes them, like that we're not just growing along the Wasatch Front, that we're growing in other areas too. So I think that's incredibly important. But back to the Executive Appropriations Committee meeting, yesterday you all did this awesome thing where you awarded bonuses to all of our educators working through COVID, except Salt Lake City School District. What happened there?
So we did, I think it's really important for everybody to know the full scope. That what we did was appropriate an inflation factor, a growth factor, and restored all the WPU, which is ongoing money, to all the districts in the state. So in terms of that foundational funding, that was done for everyone. We also then wanted to do something for teachers who have been trying to balance this like incredible um, work between in person and online. And I have this experience personally, I will tell you, that when you are trying to balance both of those at the same time, it's an incredibly increases your workload and how you work and how you have to think about how you work and how you have to plan in order to be able to provide a dynamic, consistent teaching environment. And we wanted to make sure that we could kind of recognize that for the teachers who are doing that all across the state, that kind of increase of expectations on them, trying to balance all of that. And, you know, most of our districts and charter schools in the state have done that. And we just wanted to make sure we recognize that extra level of effort that's going on out there. And, you know, I know that there are some districts or a district that has decided to do some of that, but not maybe for the future. I don't know exactly where they are. But we know that if their teachers, if they decide after the winter holiday that they're going that way, their teachers would need this too. But it's easier if you're just, it's not quite the same stress and strain as when you're trying to bounce all those balls at the same time. And we just wanted to recognize that extraordinary effort.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Sorry, I just read about it this morning. That's why I'm asking questions. We are in the Salt Lake City School District. My son is 10 and he's been doing digital learning from a desk right over here, just off camera. I was just curious. He has two teachers who've completely had to change how they teach, and one is primarily teaching from home and one is primarily teaching from the school. So I wasn't really sure where the guidelines were for that appropriation and how that works, especially considering, as far as I know, the board made the decision to start in-person education starting January 25th, which seems a week after the deadline that the EAC set out. Is that correct?
Well, actually, this legislation that would do this, it probably won't. I mean, it'll be a couple of weeks into the session before that passes. So I think if they start to put something in place, we will be supportive of that and the kind of extraordinary effort that will take for the teachers to be able to accommodate and do that. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, it takes a full legislature to pass anything, and I'm always mindful, but in my mind, if people have put that together and they put it in place, and I have to say, we hear a lot from parents in the Salt Lake District. They want the option of being able, if they choose to, they want the option of their children being able to go to school. And I know where I live, I have 4 districts, and they're all doing that. On the other hand, they have provided an online option, and they're giving parents options and choices based on what they're most comfortable with. And I actually think that's what we need to do. We need to facilitate options so parents have a choice to totally stay online if they want to, but also if they feel it's really important for their child to have in-person experiences, or they learn better that way, and for whatever the reason, that we make that available to the parents and students across the state. So I'm pretty passionate about setting up the opportunities for parents and students to have choice here.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I totally understand that. And I know that the district was very divided. I know the East Bench really wanted school back in session in person, and the West Side, which has been the hardest hit side, was the one that was more hesitant. I think a big part of that is because they've seen it like front and center in their own homes, and they're a little bit wary of, you know, making sure that their students and their teachers are safe like that. And it was just something really interesting that I read this morning. So I'm so sorry to like highlight on that.
But just another point about that, you know, the interesting part is what we're starting to see is that children that are getting this generally aren't getting it from school. They're getting it either at home or in all those other activities they do out of school. And so that's where they're contracting it. So they're actually, because of all the safety protocols that the schools are using and how careful they're being. Yes, we have cases, but most of the cases are coming from not.
Oh yeah. And they definitely originate and spread elsewhere. And I totally understand that. We're very excited to have our son go back. And the way that they have it scheduled, they're like kind of rolling in the different grades. And so his grades won't be going back until the beginning of February. But I know he's super excited to see his teachers and his friends and really actually have that experience other than just us sitting behind him while he's doing his digital learning every morning and making sure that, he's doing all the work and whatnot. But so
the social emotional side is so important. And that's important to our children's development. And I know that we have folks who do a lot of work on the mental health side and making sure we're providing mental health support. And they're saying, I'm having, psychiatrists and psychologists come and talk to me about this, and that our kids need this social, emotional, and development piece, and how critical that is. So, yeah. For sure. Well, so for me, it's let's provide choice, and we should provide choice everywhere and let parents choose what's best for their children.
Definitely. And a brief shout out to Parkview Elementary, because they've been doing home visits and making sure that they have like car parades and all sorts of crazy stuff to do as much as they can, even though they can't actually be in the classroom. So he's very excited to go back. But we'll switch topics a little bit and we'll go into our lightning round. This is a little bit more fun. So tell me, what is your most unusual talent?
People don't know that I once was my own general contractor for a house I built. And
wow.
And I can lay floors. I can put up sheetrock. I can do tile. I can paint. I actually can do a little bit of electrical and plumbing if necessary. So, I have some basic skills that you would never put me out on somebody else's job, but I know how to do a few things around the house.
So it's definitely your blood, sweat, and tears that went into your own home. That's pretty awesome.
Yes. Well, I wanted to build a house. I wanted the house I wanted, but at a price I could afford. And so the way you do that is you're your own general, and then you figure out how to do a lot of work yourself.
Wow. That's wild. That's awesome. So the next one is even sillier. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Okay. Could you go?
How many? Have you never eaten hot dogs and sauerkraut?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. It's hot dogs and meat.
Yes. Definitely. So could you go 30 days without your phone?
No, not anymore. There was a time I could have done that.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of, I would like to, but as my responsibilities call, I cannot do so right now. So I totally understand that. The next one is, what generation are you from?
Oh, I'm a baby boomer.
Okay.
So yes, I am that group that is kind of big, that just keeps going through the system and causing problems at every step along the way.
Oh, that's amazing. There should definitely be like a legislative wide, like, okay, boomer, just as a joke. So like embrace it, so that people can't use it as like an offensive term. I think that would be hilarious to see, especially senators on the floor wearing okay boomer shirts over their nice work clothes and whatnot. That'd be hilarious.
Boomers rock, right?
Exactly. Boomers rock. What's your favorite jelly bean?
Oh, red jelly beans.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. We are a dog family. I don't actually have a dog right now, okay. But all the kids have like not just one dog, but 2 dogs. So if they all bring them over, there's like 6 dogs around. So
I grew up with dogs, and my whole life long, I've grown up with dogs. And my husband had never had a dog before. And when we moved in together, I was like, okay, so now we have a house and it's time to get a dog. Like, that's just what you do. You have a yard, it's time to get a dog. And so we got a dog, and we were the first ones to have fur grandbabies in the family. And
Oh,
it spread like wildfire. So his siblings who hadn't had animals all of a sudden had animals, and it was so wonderful. And we take them all to grandma and grandpa's house all the time. It's lovely. I totally understand
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
the
They
next,
they now provide all the entertainment, right?
definitely, exactly, and it keeps, especially with the younger kids, it just keeps the younger kids entertained, because then there's animals there that aren't their animals that they get to play with. It's pretty awesome. So the next one is, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a doctor. And I ended up in the health professions. But I also, along the way, I took this kind of trek that I ended up in the higher education side of health professions. So, and that's why I teach today in healthcare administration, et cetera.
Representative Daley Provost mentioned that she also wanted to be a doctor, and then she took organic chemistry. And that's actually what kind of, my sister aced organic chemistry, but it was so intricate and detailed that she was like, I don't know. So when my sister left, she actually went to hotel and restaurant administration so that she could be part of the nutrition program at her university. So she stayed, adjacent, medically adjacent. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see the different paths that people take when they decide not to go into medicine.
Interesting. Yeah, I think and that decision happens a lot, but particularly in my generation, I think you felt like there were fewer options.
Definitely.
That was at a time that you went into the health field, and my mother had been in the health field, so I kind of knew that as an option. You became a teacher, or you saw yourself, frankly, at that point in time, becoming more like a secretary or administrative assistant. And you really didn't think about the full breadth of opportunity there could be out there. It was just a time that there were certain roles and opportunities. So what I think is so wonderful today, that a young person, whether male or female, can think about any option for their career, and find role models out there and see people doing that work, and know if that's what their interest is, they can pursue it, they can do it. And we just need to facilitate that.
Definitely. So the next one is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Wow. I would be, I would know, I would want to know, better be able to know what people are thinking and what they want. And I mean, if I had a power that really let me understand you, so that I could know where you're coming from, and what would help you and support you, and how I might be, how I could relate to you better and to support your needs better. I think that would be incredible. Just that ability to kind of see into a person, and see the good that's there, and see what you can do to really help them and support them.
I like that a lot. What is the worst movie you've ever seen?
Ooh. I'll just give you the category. I do not watch horror movies at all. I have no desire, don't want to see them. So you could give any of those movies to me, and I'd say that's the worst movie.
I totally understand that. Do you have a favorite movie?
I'm really old school, so I'm going to go back to something like The Sound of Music. I still really love that movie. I love watching it. So
I remember exactly where I was. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, and my stepmom was just shocked that I hadn't watched The Sound of Music, and she rented it. And I remember watching it and loving it, and then realizing how long it was, and then loving it, and then realizing how long it was. Because as a little kid, I mean, it's a decently long movie to get through. But no, I totally get that. I love that movie. It's a beautiful movie.
Well,
Um,
you know what I really like? So do you remember when Julie Andrews sings Climb Every Mountain?
mhm.
That has just been like, if you ask me, like I've got a couple of songs that I would say are like songs that kind of spoke to me, and Climb Every Mountain's one of them. I mean, it just says, and the other is To Dream the Impossible Dream.
Yep,
Uh,
Man of La Mancha.
so it's that kind of just think that you can do whatever you want to do and do it and take the risk and climb the mountain and dream the dream and then figure out how to get there and make it come true. And for me, that's just kind of been guiding lights in my life, and I want that for everybody.
Yeah, it reminds me of that phrase, the shoot for the moon, because if nothing else, you'll land in the stars. And it's like, go for it, because you'll make some sort of change some way. It's a really, really beautiful concept. So
Yes.
the last question we have is, what is the strangest text or email you've gotten from a constituent?
Oh, well, it's probably not strange, but the one that I get is, "What are you thinking?"
Yeah, for sure. Senator Andrigg actually mentioned that he got an email from a constituent asking the legislature not to ban the use of the letter N. And so he had to do a little digging and found out that it was actually something that was being presented in Hong Kong. It wasn't in Utah. It wasn't anywhere around Utah. So he had his intern write a letter back, and the letter was like very descriptive, like, this is not our issue. We're not even considering this. This would be, a silly, silly thing to consider. But then he had the intern go back and remove all of the letter N's from each and every single word that he had in his response email, just to kind of be a little sassy. And that definitely amused me for sure. I know you guys get a lot of hate mail. Do you guys get support ever?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good.
It's been interesting. You want people to communicate with you. It's really important for them to tell you kind of, how something impacts them or why they care about something, and the reason they would like you to vote one way or the other, or support something or not support something. And so for me, hearing that from my constituents is really important. The harder part sometimes is when they just get really mad at you and let you know that. But because we have to make a vote, and if there are most issues, I will hear from, particularly in my district, I have a really diverse district. Probably in some ways, as diverse as any district in the state in terms of political positions on things, all the way from, people that are very democratic to people who are I kind of go the ultra democratic to the ultra Republican, and all along the way. So it really doesn't matter what the issue is. I'm going to have people, probably if it's a really important issue, people are going to be on both sides. And I'm going to hear from both. And I just have to weigh all that and then try to say, in weighing that, what they want, and then also try to think about what's best for Utah and make a vote. And I don't get to do yes, but, or no, but, or it has to be yes or it has to be no. And I know when I do that, then I'm going to make somebody in my district is not going to be happy about that vote. But I try to make sure that what I do is to take all of their input into consideration, and then try to use my best judgment to vote on the issue in a way that I think is ultimately what I feel is best for the state.
For sure. And it's been, honestly, having worked with you on different issues, especially around education and rural education, and making sure that all that gets taken care of, and and set. It's been really wonderful to work with you because you have been very pensive about your decision making. You take all the information in, and it's been really fun to see a leader in the Senate be able to do that and do it so well and so balanced. So we really thank you for your work and for your time. And we'd love to hear from you during the session. If you've got anything that you want to make sure that you get out to our viewers, we'd love to have you on again.
Sounds great. And I hope to see you in person again someday, right, too?
One day soon, we will, for sure.
One day soon, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully by summer, will be warmer and can be outside more, but we will also be able to get a critical number of people vaccinated, at least those who have underlying health conditions or are higher risk because of age and all those things. I think all of us will breathe a sigh of relief when those in our families that we worry about, we know have protection. So
definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.